Tulsi Gabbard has got some interesting signs. I know I've been maybe making too much of this, but I find it interesting that Tulsi Gabbard began her campaign on 2/2/19. Brent Spiner, my husband's birthday, is 2/2/49. Brent turned 70 on 2/2/19. Have you noticed that 7 times 7 equals 49? He was born in 49. 7 times equals 49. Seven's the divine number. Also, we've had a blue moon on the 17th, 18th, and 19th of this month. The blue moon was officially on 5/18/19. It landed on 6 plus 6 plus 6, or the number of the beast, or the 18th day of May. The Antichrist comes out of the Jesuit order because Zach Knight was officially the Antichrist on 2/14/12. Take a look at these numbers. Everybody knows the Antichrist will be a Gentile of Roman origin. Many believe the Catholic Church is Rome, that Rome never really died, just went underground and morphed into a political religious conglomerate in the Catholic Church. Yes, I led Zach to the Lord in 2016, but Jesus refuses to say who the Antichrist is right now, even though Laurie McBride currently has Antichrist powers, though he did describe Angelina Ballerina, Laurie's Antichrist predecessor, as the Antichrist 1,000 times over. I'm wondering if Angelina is possibly a transgender Alexander the Great. She's brutal in military conquest, just like Alexander, and she looks like him too. He was short and she's short. I'm fiddling with ideas for my novel in progress right now. You might say, but Alexander was Greek, not Roman. Well, the Alexander could be a Greek who's of Roman origin, because he's the Catholic leader and the Catholic Church is Rome. Yeah, I know Angelina was a janitor's daughter, but that could be Satan's trick to cover up who the real Antichrist will be. Perhaps Satan used a form of artificial insemination to implant transgender Alexander into the womb of Angelina's mother. You might say, you think that Satan knew all along that Zach Knight would defect? No, I don't think Satan's that smart. But I think he had several backup plans for Antichrist in case Zach didn't work out and God, in his foreknowledge, knew Angelina, actually Alexander the Great, would be the final Antichrist. And Jesus did say Angelina is 1,000 times the Antichrist. Okay, so how does this explain that Angelina is now dead and Laurie McBride now has Antichrist powers? Either Angelina's ruling from hell and using Laurie as her proxy, or Laurie is the transgender version of the false prophet who probably also cannot be killed. There's going to be a false prophet and an antichrist during the tribulation because he has to fulfill biblical prophecy. I've noticed that Laurie McBride is real good at religious doctrine. Satan's used her to create a religion that makes the wicked who enjoy their sin and don't want to give it up feel justified and righteous. She's behind all the crazy new ideologies coming out now, like toxic masculinity and so forth. Angelina was more of a politician and a military leader. Laurie does have a space fleet, but the reason we can't defeat her is because of her religious genius. She's able to get a following because she's charismatic religious leader. And she attracts those she can brainwash. She's real good at brain control, like the false prophet of Revelation. You might say, why doesn't God use Trump instead of Tulsi? He speaks more the Christian language than Tulsi. I think Trump's a false Christian, and he has the evangelicals fooled. He's like a tare among the wheat. He's a status quo Christian and represents Christian tradition, sort of like the Pharisees and Sadducees when Jesus showed up the first time. Whereas people like Tulsi and me represent Christianity at a higher level, living a life of true love. I hope I'm wrong, but his actions contradict what he says. He's broken about half of his campaign promises. Anyways, I haven't seen any signs around Trump like I have Tulsi. Interesting alignment of numbers with Tulsi. Trump doesn't seem to have an ideology. That's why he's broken half of his campaign promises. He's a total pragmatist, only interested in winning more than being true to principles. Tulsi seems to have some genuine principles. She seems like someone Jesus would like. It's like God saying he'll use a Democrat, blue moon, Tulsi, to work with my Brent Spiner to defeat 666, Lori McBride right now. There's something going on here. I think we baby boomers tend to disdain the millennials, but Jesus has a strong interest in them and has given me lots of advice about how to reach them, like telling me not to make my videos longer than 15 minutes because today's generation has a short attention span. Over and over, he gives me advice about how to reach millennials. Jesus seems to be impressed with some of them. Tulsi's a millennial. You know what I think Jesus likes about millennials? I think it's because they aren't closed-minded and more open to his plan for this time. But much of what Jesus has instructed me is contrary to what I've been taught from my Christian elders. I've had to unlearn a lot of incorrect teaching from them. This seems to happen every time Jesus appears on earth. He always has to correct those who claim to represent him. He apparently feels that millennials are most open to his will for tribulation earth. We are very close to the tribulation. I think Jesus is starting to lay out his plans for the millennium and how to be righteous as a millennium saint. He's used me and Brent Spiner to add more to his revelation so that those who read my Bible for Tribulation Saints are aware of his plans for the millennium and what he considers righteousness for the millennium. Whenever Jesus or God make a lot of earthly shows or appearances, they are preparing people for the next stage in their plan, when the world's about to transition from one dispensation to the next. We are at that transition phase right now, and Jesus has used me and Brent to reveal some hidden things that he has not wanted to reveal until now, and these things are related to how to be righteous in the future millennium. Like when God did a lot of miracles in the Old Testament with Moses, he was getting ready to go into the dispensation of law. You see what I mean? Whenever God's about to go into a new part of his plan or go to a new dispensation, he makes a lot of appearances and does a lot of miracles, like Jesus is doing now with me and my men. We are transitioning from the dispensation of grace, church age, to the dispensation of marriage or love, the 1,000-year reign. We are currently in the dispensation or covenant of grace. We are transitioning to the 1,000-year reign or marriage of Christ to his bride, the church, which I would call the dispensation of love or marriage. To be a great lover will be the ultimate form of righteousness for the millennial reign, and Jesus is preparing us for that transition, dropping hints about how the rules will change somewhat or go to a higher level to be righteous as a millennium saint. If you'll notice, with each move forward in God's plan, we go to a higher form of righteousness. Grace or New Testament is higher than law or Old Testament. And love, like in my Bible for Tribulation Saints, or righteousness in the 1,000-year reign of Christ, is higher than grace, New Testament. And then in eternity future, God's perfection and holiness is higher than love. So when God has an absolute reign after the 1,000-year reign of Christ is finished, and absolute perfection and holiness reigns over the entire universe, will be at our highest form of righteousness, and all the wicked will then be purged from the earth at that point. He did this in his first coming when he surprised the Jewish nation by revealing he'd have a church and that grace would replace the law. Now he's shown up again and has more surprises and changes in his plan. Mainly, he's revealing his true attitude towards love and sexuality that he's kept hidden up to this point, probably because the millennium is when he's married to the church. So he really wants the world to know how he feels about sex, love, and marriage. And this is how you'll be righteous during his millennial reign, by honoring love and using sex as a way to express love. I suspect that the millennium rebels who'll side with Satan against Jesus at the end of his 1,000-year reign will honor lust over love, and that's why they'll rebel, kind of like the men on my marriage list who defected in January 2019. The men on my marriage list are types of the millennium saints, and the ones who rebelled against me in January 2019 are types of the millennium saints who will rebel against Jesus at the end of his 1,000-year reign. They're mad because they don't agree with Jesus's rules about love and marriage, just like the ones who rebel at the end of the millennium. So Jesus wants us to really understand what is true love and why he considers it so important. because those who fail as lovers in the millennium are the ones who go to hell. So he's letting us know his attitude towards love and marriage to prepare us for how to be righteous as a millennium saint. He told me that I'm doing his will when I tell the world about the love between me and my husband, Brent Spiner, and the men who love me. Jesus keeps going up and up in righteousness in his requirements for each dispensation as we near the end of his plan for the ages. First, he gave us his law through the Jews, Old Testament. Next, he gave us grace through his death on the cross and starting the church, where we're saved by grace through faith. The future tribulation is a purging period where those who don't honor love will take the mark of the beast and go to hell. Once the purge takes place, he's able to go to his next higher phase of righteousness, which is pure and high married love. So how to be righteous in the millennium is by being a great and high lover. Brent and I are setting the example for this, which is why he'll give Brent and I his semen as a wedding gift for his millennial reign. So in the next dispensation, he gives us love, the highest gift during the millennial reign, before we go into the next phase, which is perfection, like the divine number 7, eternity future. This reminds me of the time in 2002 when God revealed, all these signs, when God revealed to me that I'm descended from King David, all this stuff about these numbers around Tulsi. Tulsi's a very loving person. She epitomizes what Jesus wants people to be right now. Blue is the Democratic Party color, and it was on the days of the blue moon that I wrote my law overturning Roe versus Wade, replacing abortion with transporter C-sections, and my law mandating that all voters be educated about Putin to vote. I'm seeing a divine connection to the Tulsi Gabbard run for the U.S. presidency. Lots of signs around her right now. I can hear some evangelicals right now, but Jesus would never use a Democrat. I wouldn't be too sure about that. Jesus wanted me to write the story of the murder of Democrat Barack Obama. He specifically requested that I write that story in 2014. I suspect Jesus may use Tulsi to perhaps defeat the Jesuit order. I don't know. But I find these numbers interesting, and the blue moon right now. I also happen to believe the rapture will happen in the spring, perhaps the month of May. So perhaps Jesus likes to draw attention to May as the month of new beginnings or a new life. I base this on Song of Solomon 2:10 through 13, where my beloved spake, "Rise up, my love, and fair one, and come away. It's springtime." Read it. So, Song of Solomon 2:10 through 13. And Song of Solomon 2 has 14 verses, sevens again. And it's also chapter 2. And there are 2 sevens in 14. But it's all these sevens and the fact that Tulsi officially started her campaign on Brent Spiner's birthday that intrigues me. I think Tulsi is going to be very significant in the 2020 elections. And then 2020 seems to match with 2-2, Brent Spiner's birthday. Too many signs here. Something's going on in God's divine plan. Though Tulsi's a Hindu, she's very pure in her belief and would be very open to accepting Jesus, I think, especially the Jesus I've known since 2012 when he started speaking with me one-on-one or communicating with me one-on-one. I know this Jesus, and he would love Tulsi. She has an open heart. Jesus would think she was super cool. Now think about this. Red is the Republican Party color, kind of like how the red blood shed on the cross stands for grace. Blue is the Democratic Party color, sort of like true blue or a loyal lover, or that song, Love is Blue. Jesus' message for today, if you want to be cool with him, be a great lover. That's how you're righteous in the millennium, like the song, Love is Blue. So, you guys, I'm telling you, too many signs around Tulsi. Something is definitely up in God's plan with Tulsi.